All right, guys, let me level with you. And you know Uncle Chael only tells the truth. I enjoy some trash talk, but I got no dirt on Brunt. My personal favorites are the Marin and the Omen. And guys, these things are comfortable right out of the box. I'm talking zero break-in, none. And if you got a hardworking guy in your life, a construction guy, a mechanic, a rancher, a weekend warrior, or just a tough dude who likes standing tall, Brunt boots and their whole lineup of killer workwear make perfect gifts. Durable, dependable, and they're actually comfortable. Plus, they're dropping limited edition styles all month long. I'm telling you right now, these are gonna sell out. I don't want you saying I didn't warn you. Built to perform, built to last, and guess what? If they're not right for you, Brunt will stand behind it. You can send them back, no risk. With temperatures dropping and the holidays coming up, treat yourself or the hardworking man in your life to real comfort. You can skip the junk gifts. Get Brunt workwear. Our listeners get $10 off their entire order. Just use the code Chael at checkout. I want you to go to bruntworkwear.com. Use code Chael. Order today, and when they ask, let them know you heard about it right here on the show. Anthony Joshua ranks Jake Paul ahead of Tyson Fury in heavyweight rankings. Now, the psychology of a work is a very fascinating thing. There was one in MMA, and it was bad. It was really bad. It was Dan Severn versus Shannon Rich. And as far as works go, this was bad. It was very obvious. And it wasn't, you got to understand it from this perspective. If I'm in the back, I've never done a work, I would have happily been involved in a work. I would have happily been involved in 50 works if I'm going over. If I'm in the locker room getting ready for a fight and my opponent comes in and goes, listen, I'm taking the night off. At X minute, do this, I'm going to do this. I'd have said yes every single time. And so would every other fighter. So it put Dan Severn in a very tough spot. I don't think these guys flew out with an agreement to do a work. I think it was like a last minute suggestion, and that's fine. It's just it was videoed and it's bad. And when it's videoed and it gets out and people call it out for what it was, which was a scripted match, it was Dan's response that was the giveaway, and Dan denied it. But it was his response. This was the heavyweight champion of the UFC. This was the biggest draw and the most respected name at one point in the sport. This is the guy that went 20 minutes with Royce Gracie. And so Dan comes out and he talks about what a great honor it was to share the ring with Shannon Rich, and what a great honor and compliment it was to him, and how excited and what an athletic achievement it was for him to get the victory that night. He just went too far. I mean, I watched the match and I knew that it was a work, but I'm not against the business. I'm going to try to cover the work as much as they're going to try to cover the work. It's an industry. And when Dan had given that interview and Dan talked about how great Shannon, what an honor it was to be in the ring with him, that's where we lost it. That's where guys like me that were going to come in the backside and kind of try to shape this and redo a narrative, and maybe we build towards a rematch. That's where we just go, hey, you're on your own. You went too far. But it's the psychology of a work. Anthony Joshua is in the easiest boxing match of his life. And that is not an exaggeration. Anthony Joshua did not face anybody in his teen years in the amateurs, coming up through the Golden Gloves, representing England in the Olympic Games. For example, he did not come across anybody as small or as inexperienced as Jake Paul. Anthony Joshua has never had a face-off with anybody as small or inexperienced as Jake Paul. That includes his amateur days. Jake Paul, and this is off the top of my head, I believe has had 9 matches. Now, I could be wrong, and he's had 11 matches, and I it's the same thing. 9 and 11 is the same thing. Anthony Joshua's never fought somebody with less than that. That includes his debut in the amateurs. The guy who he debuted in the amateurs was 10-4. Did you know that? 10-4 was Anthony Joshua's first ever fight. I get that those were amateurs, but it was still a guy with 14 matches, which is more than Jake Paul. It's a literal statement. There is no weigh-in that Anthony Joshua has ever had where he has enjoyed the size advantage that he has over Jake Paul. Now, when you get put in that spot, there's only one thing that can diminish you, which is you. You going around and you doing interviews and you doing press conferences as a way of trying to do twofold, right? Where Anthony Joshua is building Jake Paul up, or even in this ridiculous statement where he says that Jake Paul is in front of Tyson Fury. Like the level of stupidness to that. But it's a two-pronged approach that is very transparent. And it really makes him look quite stupid. Not just foolish. This was a stupid thing for Joshua to do. You're trying to sell tickets. You're trying to create a level of anticipation that you feel in your heart does not exist. That's step one. And step two, you want to make sure you're getting yourself credit after you get the victory. That's the number one thing that a fighter wants, more than a belt or more than money. He wants a pat on the back. He wants somebody to quite literally say, good job. It's a very hard life, and it's a very hard sport, and you will get young men to come in day after day after day after day if they have a coach who tells them, good job, before they leave. Believe that or not, it is the number one thing that a fighter wants. Grown man to a little boy. So Joshua is trying to preserve the idea that he will be told good job, which is very unlikely. This is probably the only fight that he would ever have. Like, I could picture myself in the locker room in the back and Joshua comes through the curtain after he just cleans up Jake Paul. I don't know that I would say good job. I mean, it is such an obvious and foregone conclusion. However, if he says enough times to enough people how great this opponent is and what a close match we're going to have. Like, there was one guy that was scared when Joshua fought Francis Ngannou. That was another one. That's a very obvious conclusion. You have a guy that had a good boxing match, but he still has a record of absolutely 0 wins in his life. He's not 0-0. He's now 0-1. He has never succeeded in this sport taking on the Olympic champion. I mean, it was so obvious what was going to happen, but there was one guy that was scared. There was one guy that didn't know it, and there was one guy that was really relieved when it was over. And that was Joshua. If you go back and watch that, he was frightened of Francis Ngannou. Now, he talked himself into that. It's not bad that he did that. A large part of why Joshua was so dangerous that night and got the result that he did is because he convinced himself of a threat. Now, the threat didn't exist, but he convinced himself it did. That creates an urgency. You don't want to go in there and overlook somebody. I'm just sharing with you, Joshua versus Paul. This is silly. This is the sporting mismatch of my lifetime. And the odds don't reflect that. The odds are big. There's a big gap. But it's not the most mismatched betting line in the history of sports, even though it is the greatest mismatch in the history of sport. And the reason for that is not because there's a secret underground belief in Jake Paul's boxing. It's because the public is not convinced that they're getting a straight shoot. There's a segment of the public that believes that this is a work, that this is scripted, that this is entertainment, that this is wrestling. And so they're willing to hedge their money and go, hey, listen, it doesn't matter who the better boxer is. It just matters who the referee says while the cameras are rolling the winner is. That's who the sports books are going to pay out. And I'm willing to bet that Jake Paul, who set this fight up, who is the promoter of this fight, has written himself in as the star. Now, I'm very confident those people are wrong. I'm just sharing with you that that is why you don't have 20,000 to 1 odds, which is what this match truly is. And now you've got Joshua trying to preserve the idea that this is a competition. And Joshua should understand, if you're king of the world, just go out and enjoy being king. There is very unlikely another time in your athletic career when you are so certain of victory. But it's what your dream was. Your dream was to always be in the back one night and not have to be nervous. Your dream has always been to go to a press conference and not have to be worried. Your dream is to get in there when the referee says, "Are you ready?" that you're not sweating it at all. That's every fighter's dream. Anthony has found himself in that situation, and he's beginning to talk himself out of it. The psychology of a work is a very fascinating thing.